Thank you. Let me first thank all the organizers for having this wonderful conference and giving me an opportunity to present my work, although I'm not an expert in geometric group theory. So I'm going to talk about automorphisms of three canonical extension of the symmetric group. Before I begin, I would like to put a kind of disclaimer that whatever I'm going to present here is going to be kind of elementary in nature and possibly trivial to the experts, or perhaps it will not be very enlightening to the experts. So my journey to the ideas, or better say some observations that I'm going to present here, begins with when I started exploring algebraic aspects of some Artin group and Coxeter group, and better to be specific, the Artin Braid group and twin groups. And this is in collaboration with Dr. Mahendra Singh and his student Nehananda, and who happens to be the next speaker. So as the title contains a word called extension, let's begin by recalling what we mean by extension, group extension. So we say that a group G is an extension of Q by N if there is a sort of sequence 1 to N to G to Q to 1, where this I is an monomorphism and phi is an epimorphism. So extension problem in group theory is like kind of, for given a pair of groups Q and N, we need to find a group G that can be seen as an extension of Q by N. So one trivial way to do is take G to be the direct product of Q and N, and to be little more general, you can take all the semi-direct product of Q acting on N, and such extensions are called split extensions, and they are easy to determine as the semi-direct product of groups are kind of well understood. So what people are really interested is in non-split extensions. However, our interest is little different here, and roughly based on this observation. So we know that every group can be seen as a quotient of three groups. So given a group Q, let's say Q is F by N1, where F is a free group and N1 is a normal subgroup of F. So we choose a normal subgroup N2 of F, so that N2 is a proper subgroup of N1. Then we can see F by N2 is an extension of F by N1, which is our given group Q, and the extension can be seen as with respect to this sort of sequence. So usually speaking here, what we are doing, we are actually removing some relations from F by N2 to obtain F by N1. And with this, our main interest is the case when Q equal to Sn, the symmetric group on N letters. So for that, we have a nice understanding of the quotient group for the Sn. And from there, we'll remove some relations and see what well-known groups we can achieve. And so the main idea behind this talk is this diagram. So here, Sn is our symmetric group. This Bn is the well-known Artin Braid group. This Tn is twin group. So this Tn and Bn can be seen as extension of this Sn by removing some specific kind of relation from Sn. And with respect to these two extensions, we will see another extension called Ln. Here we don't have any specific reason to name it as Ln, but let's move forward. And for sake of completeness, I put this group Un-1, Rn-1, An-1, and Fn-1, where this Rn-1 is right angle Artin group, and this can be seen as extension of this Tn and Bn, where this N-1 is just Artin group, and this can be seen as extension of Bn and Ln. And this Un-1 is a universal Coxeter group, and this can be seen as extension of Tn and Ln. And all these groups can be seen as quotient of this free group of rank N-1. So all these groups appearing in this diagram are either Artin groups or Coxeter groups. So let's begin with the definition of this Artin group and Coxeter group. And specifically, we are interested in this group Ln, and this Ln happens to be a Coxeter group. So we'll talk about more about Coxeter groups and some properties of Coxeter groups. So we say a group A is an Artin group if it has an identity set X, and for each pair of generators, distinct generators, say x and x prime, we attach an integer mxx prime, which is equal to mxx prime, and they are either finite positive integer greater than 1 or can be infinity. And then for each mxx prime, we write this relation that xx prime, mxx times, and in the right hand side, x prime x, mxx time. So with this, we achieve a Artin group. And the standard example are three groups. Three groups are Artin groups. And here note that when this mxx prime is 2, we have xx prime equal to x prime x. That means x commutative x prime. And in this case, if all xx prime, mxx prime are either 2 or infinity, we call the Artin group to be right angle Artin group. And for that example, are three abelian groups are right angle Artin group. And similarly, we define the Coxeter groups also. So the only difference in the presentation of Coxeter group from the presentation of an Artin group is that here the generators are of order 2. So again, here we have a MS prime, which is equal to MS prime S, and they can be again finite positive integer greater than 1 or infinity. And here we add MSS equal to 1 to make the generators identity. So in this expression, see there are even number of terms. If we split it in the middle and take the one part to the right hand side, it will look like the presentation of an Artin group. And again here, if MSS prime is 2, we can see that S prime commutes, S and S prime commutes with each other. And if all MSS prime are either 2 or infinity, then we say that the Coxeter group is to be right angle Coxeter group. And here the standard example are this free product of n copies of Z2. This is called the universal Coxeter group I talked earlier. And for right angle Coxeter group, we have this elementary abelian two groups. The standard example, they take direct product of n copies of Z2. So this is a definition of Coxeter group. So we move forward to see some terms associated to a Coxeter group. So we first define rank. So we define rank for a Coxeter system, not a Coxeter group. Being the reason that for a Coxeter group, there can be many Coxeter systems. So I forgot to say what is Coxeter system. So here the pair, the group, Coxeter group W and the generating set S together call a Coxeter system. And for a given Coxeter group W, there can be many Coxeter systems. We'll see that in a minute. So rank of a given Coxeter system WS, we define it to be the cardinality of the generating set S. And we call this MSS prime as exponent. Again, this is not a standard term. Some authors like to call them as bonds also. And when MSS prime is finite number, we call them finite exponent. And we call a Coxeter group W to be odd if all the finite exponents are odd integers. Now, let's go back to our symmetric group and see the extension, how we are going to achieve that. So, you know that the symmetric groups are a Coxeter group, and by identifying the transpositions I plus 1 with tau I, we have this m tau I tau j, which for simplicity we will call mij. These are as obvious 1 for I equal to j, and these are 3 if I equal to j plus minus 1. There are 2 when this I and j are far apart, that is I mod of I minus j is greater or equal to 2. This actually gives 3 kind of defining relations in the symmetric group. We call them involutions, Braid relations, and far commutativity. So the involutions means that all the generators are of order 2. This Braid relations, this means we satisfy this type of relation for the near generator. So tau I plus 1, tau I equal to tau I plus 1, tau I plus 1. And when the generators are far apart, this relation, the far commutativity, tau I tau j equal to tau j tau I. So this is the standard defining relations of symmetric groups. Now let's see how we are going to achieve this Artin group and twin group from this. So by omitting all relations of type 1, that the generator are involution, if we remove the condition that the generator are involutions, then we get the presentation of Braid group Bn. And we write it like, so we have changed the symbol for generator to not to be confused. So this we'll get the Braid group Bn, which is generated by n-1 elements and satisfy these two relations. This is our far commutativity, and this is the Braid relations. And similarly, if we omit all relations of type 2, that is the Braid relations, then we get the presentation of twin group Tn. Here we have this involution relation, so these are generated by order 2 elements, and we have only this far commutativity relations. So as all of us know that Artin Braid groups are celebrated objects which appears in many areas of mathematics, theoretical physics, like Braid groups relation in knot theory, and in theoretical physics, this Braid group corresponds to the Young-Baxter equations. So I'll not go to the details in this direction, but I'm not an expert in this area. Anyway, Emil Artin introduced these Braid groups in 1920s and gave the explicit presentation in 1947. He also gave a geometrical interpretation for this group Bn, and which I'm going to avoid here. So similar to that, twin group can be seen as a planar analog of Braid group Bn. And earlier these groups were known as geocentric cartographical groups. And in 1997, Khovanov gave the name twin groups and gave a geometrical interpretation of these groups, which can be realized as a planar analog of the geometrical interpretation of Braid groups. So recently, these twin groups have gained a lot of attention, and people are exploring this from both algebraic and topological point of view. In particular, I work in the algebraic aspects of these groups. As these two twin group and Braid group are extension of symmetric group, there is a natural map from this Bn and Tn to the symmetric group Sm, and we call the kernel as pure Braid group and respectively pure twin group. So with this, we have a natural question. So here we have removed the first type of relation and second type of relation. So we wonder what we'll get if we remove the third kind of relations. So if we remove the third kind of relation, we get an odd Coxeter groups. And without any specific reason, we name them Ln. So Ln is generated by n-1 element, which are of order 2, and they satisfy only Braid relations. So here, no far commutativity relations. But unfortunately, we were unable to find a geometrical interpretation of these groups as analogous to the case of Braid group and twin group. So this is still an open question. So the main theme of this talk is to understand this group Ln and their automorphisms. So to do that, we'll go back to the Coxeter groups. So let's, as I said earlier, the Coxeter system are not uniquely determined. So here we have an example. The dihedral group of order 4n, where this n is greater or equal to 3n or integer. This can have following two Coxeter presentations. In first, this can be generated with 2 elements and these relations. And in another way, this can be generated with 3 elements and these relations. And you can see that both are Coxeter presentations. The only relations are of the form which we require for a Coxeter system. And here the rank of this dihedral group is 2, here the rank is 3. So it is not always true that the Coxeter system can have many more representation. So with this, there is a very famous isomorphism problem in Coxeter groups. So before that, we'll see some graphs associated with the Coxeter system. So there are many ways of associating graphs. We'll recall here 2 standard graphs. The first one is usually people use this gamma WS. This is an undirected labeled graph. Here we take the vertex set same as the generating set H, and we put an edge between 2 vertices S and S prime. If and only if the corresponding exponent is not equal to 2, and we then label the edge between SS prime by MSS prime, if and only if the MSS prime is not 3. And if the graph is happens to be connected, then we call the group W to be an irreducible Coxeter group. So we'll see another graph GWS. Here the only difference is We put an edge between vertices S and S prime if the corresponding exponent is finite. Here we are putting an edge when the exponent is not equal to 2. Here we are putting an edge if the exponent is finite. So we are avoiding when the exponent is infinity. And again, the level is same. We level the edge between SS prime if this MSS prime is not equal to 3. So little difference between this graph. Actually, the gamma graph gives an important information. This gamma graph split into like many connected components. This Coxeter group can be seen as direct product of the Coxeter group coming out of the connected components. And in this case, it becomes the free product. In the case of this graph GWS. So with this, let's go to the isomorphism problem. So if you are given two Coxeter system W1S1 and W2S2, and equivalently we can be given two graphs gamma W1S1, gamma W2S2, or VW1S1 and VW2S2. We need to determine whether W1 is isomorphic to W2 or not. So a lot of work is going on also in this direction, and I'll give a reference for that later. But in our case, let's fix to the isomorphism problem for odd Coxeter group, because we are interested in the group Ln, which happens to be odd Coxeter group. So this odd for odd Coxeter group, this isomorphism problem is partially solved actually. So when this given to odd Coxeter system W1S1 and W2S2, if their corresponding graph VWS1 and VW2S2 are trees, then we know what is the isomorphism between this W1 and W2. So in that case, W1 is isomorphic to W2 if and only both Coxeter system has same rank, if the commutativity of both generating set is same, and the multiplicity of the finite exponent are same. So if this happens, then W1 is isomorphic to W2. And this is from this paper, and this paper contains a lot of another results for isomorphism problem. So let's see what we get from this isomorphism problem. So here we have three groups. From this presentation, we can see that these three groups looks very different. And in particular, if you see their graphs, these are their graphs. These three graphs also looks very different. And for these three graphs, we have these three groups. But from the result of this Braid, McCommand, and Muller, we can say that these three groups are isomorphic, because the graph is these three. All these three are trees. There is no loops, and their exponent have same multiplicity. Here the 7 is multiplicity 2 and 5 is multiplicity 1. So these three graphs are, so the groups corresponding to these three graphs are isomorphic. So with this, we come back to the group Ln. So if you notice that this graph of Ln will be the straight line. Now we want to modify this graph to understand the automorphism better. So using the result, we can see that this group Ln is isomorphic to the group Wn, and the graph of Bwn is like this, the star graph. But for this star graph, automorphism of the graph is large, and we will get large number of outer automorphism from the group Ln. So as this group Ln is isomorphic to this group Wn, here we will see the automorphism of odd Coxeter group Wn when its B graph is star shaped. Now for this, we can take a general family where these edges can have labeled. So now we consider this group. And with respect to this group, we have this graph. So W1 is connected to every other edges. So here the relation was actually W1 Wi to the power Ti. So the graph is W1 is connected to or other edges, and they can be labeled. So we'll see automorphism of this group. So for this, we'll first see the graph automorphism. So, okay, before that, we'll have a quick comment on the inner automorphism. So there is a result in the Burbaki's book that the center of an infinite irreducible Coxeter group is trivial. And with this, we claim that the inner automorphism W is isomorphic to W. Now moving forward, so the automorphism of the graph extends uniquely to a automorphism of group W. And in this case, our graph automorphism of this group is direct product of this SK1, SK2, SKL, where this KI are the multiplicity of these TIs. This KI are multiplicity of TIs actually. So this graph automorphism happens to be the direct product of these symmetric groups. And finally, the full we'll skip this slide, and the full automorphism group of W happens to be or W equal to inner automorphism times C times this graph automorphism, where it is not necessarily the inner automorphism will split. There is outer automorphism will split over inner automorphism, but this splitting happens in this group. So in this inner times C, that sorry, this is outer automorphism. Sorry, no, this is automorphism graph automorphism. Sorry, this is graph automorphism. And here C is this C2 therefore C3 Cn, and where Ci can be seen as this automorphism, and they are given as this Wj is Wj when j equal to I, or W1 times W1 Wi to power k when j is equal to I. Sorry, when this is j not equal to I. And this C has non-trivial intersection with inner automorphism, and which can be seen as which is generated by the inner automorphism given by the element W1. So this is the total automorphism of this group W. So with this, we'll get the automorphism of Ln, where we will have a isomorphism between W to Ln. So here we'll recall the automorphism of Braid and twin group also. So for Braid group, automorphism Braid group is inner automorphism semi-that outer automorphism, where this outer automorphism Z by 2Z, and they are generated by this step of automorphism. This sigma I goes to sigma I inverse for all I. And for twin groups, this automorphism of twin group is again inner automorphism Tn semi-that outer automorphism. Here for outer automorphism, we have three cases. This is Z2 if n equal to 3, and this is S3 if n equal to 4, and this is D8 if n is equal to 5. And for Z2 anyway, the twin group T2 is Z2 and its automorphism trivial. So we are considered for n z equal to 3. Again for Ln, for n equal to 2, it is Z2 and its automorphism trivial. And for n equal to 3, its automorphism is exactly all automorphism. Actually for n equal to 3, this is S3 and all automorphism inner, so it is again L3. And for n greater equal to 4, this is Ln semi-direct Z by 2Z to the power n minus 3 semi-direct with Sn minus 2. So in this case, the outer automorphism does not split out inner automorphism. And so I'm done with this. I'd like to stop here. Thank you for your attention.
Let's thank the speaker. Any questions for Tushar?
Yeah, can I ask?
Yes.
Yeah, hi Tushar, this is Shomo.
Yeah.
Yes, I have some basic questions. So you said in slide 10, I guess, that given a Coxeter group, the Coxeter presentation is not unique, right?
Yes.
So my question is whether, suppose you have a Coxeter group and you also fix the number of elements in the generating set.
Okay.
Then is it unique, the presentation?
I don't think so. Actually, for now, I don't have a look. There can be different isomorphic presentation, but I still hope that there can be different non-isomorphic presentation also. But okay, you can. Yeah, you can. What you can do is here you have this D4 and D4 and okay. So take D4 N1 and D4 N2. Take their direct product, and for one case take this presentation and for other this take this presentation. We can swap these two presentation and take the direct product. So they will be kind of different.
But in that case, both will have 5.
Yeah, both will have 5 generators.
Same set of relations. You mean up to some range?
So let's take D12 and D20. Okay. So for D12, in the first you take this presentation, in the second you take this presentation, and for D20 in the first group take this representation, and in second take this representation, and take the direct product. So they are not because in first for D12 part you have 2 generators, but in second for D12 you have 3 generators, and in the first group for D12 we have 3 generators, and for D20 we have 3 generators, and for D20 we have 2 generators in second part.
Okay, yeah, right.
Any other questions? I have one question. I think it was slide 12 or 13. So you talked about these graphs, yeah, gamma and V,
Okay.
and yeah, maybe in the next you said if V W1 S1 and V W2 S2 are trees. So is it known what their corresponding gamma graphs will be? That's the first question. And second, is any result known when these V graphs are not trees?
So, especially there are no known result for this case when these are no tree. So for the case when there are one loop, you can try to construct some argument. So actually, you have to first look how you achieve the isomorphism between W1 and W2 from these graphs. So there is something called twisted graph twisting of automorphism, and that you can find in this paper. So using that idea, you may able to achieve when there are 1 or 2 loops. But for in general, I don't know whether there are any known results. I don't think so actually. And to get the graph, so you have if you have these graphs V, then you can easily determine this Coxeter system W1 and W2. And from there, you can easily determine the gamma graph also.
Okay. Good.
Actually, when this is odd Coxeter, this both happens to be kind of same, because in gamma you remove the edge when there are 2, but in particular this B graph does not have, like when this W1 and W2 are odd Coxeter group, there is no edge when this edge is 2, like the exponent is 2. So this gamma graph will be, this B graph can be seen as subgraph of this gamma graph. We have to add just the infinity part here for the gamma graph.
Okay. Thanks. Any other questions? Okay. If not, let's thank Tushar again.